Chapter 296, A Ridiculous Request. A gentle, cool breeze was blowing on the coastline. Tang Xiu folded his arms, standing there as though a sculpture. He looked at Viviani, who had taken off her shoes and was running barefoot on the beach. Viviani's exotic beauty gave him a kind of pleasant and wonderful feeling, just like the exotic beauty of a fairy maiden he once saw in the Immortal world. "Mr. Tang, do you like the sea?" In her fluttering white dress, Viviani's arms were moving as though in a dance, as its owner then suddenly turned and shouted loudly. Tang Xiu shook his head and calmly replied, "People have 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures, whereas the sea is a representation of the capricious state of mind. I myself am not someone who is fond of things that are beyond my control." Viviani came floating as her gem-like eyes gazed at Tang Xiu, asking curiously, "You can't control the sea?" "The current me is indeed unable to do so," said Tang Xiu. "Then, what can you control now?" asked Viviani with a laugh. "What I can control at present is perhaps my own destiny," said Tang Xiu. "You Chinese people, do you not think that all the things regarding life are a subject that has been foreordained by the heaven? Why would you say that you can control your own destiny? To my knowledge thus far, there has never been one who can really control their own destinies. After all, the distinction between the standings of life, the social hierarchy, and the situation and policy of a country, each and every one of them pose their own strong restrictions," said Viviani. Tang Xiu shook his head. "Your argument is quite justified, but it's not entirely correct either. For example, yourself. You can go anywhere in the world whenever you wish to, and you can survive wherever you are. The very thing that binds you is your own state of mind. Nothing else." "Why would you say so?" asked Viviani, surprised. "Because you're strong enough. Powerful people are and will always be placed above all else," said Tang Xiu. Viviani was silent. Tang Xiu's words stirred up her emotions. She thought Tang Xiu's argument was reasonable since ever since she was born, her body appeared to have different changes and transformations compared to ordinary people. She couldn't tell whether these changes were good or bad, but she was aware that she possessed stronger strength, spirit, health, learning speed, and survival abilities far more than that of an ordinary person's. Hence, she was recruited by a transcendental organization, from whereupon she was trained. Thereafter, she had long since become a special existence, the only godlike existence in the entirety of Holy See. She was thereupon canonized as a saintess who was thought as unlikely to become the next pope, yet she possessed equal standing and privileges just like the pope. It was because she possessed strength. Yet, even though she directly left the Vatican when she was 14 years old and had been wandering around like a rootless duckweed ever since, still despite this, she didn't dare say that she was in control of her own destiny. "You're an arrogant person." After dazing for a long period of time, Viviani looked at Tang Xiu and spoke. However, her eyes shot out an indescribable splendor in the dark night. Tang Xiu replied with a smile, "It is not that I'm arrogant. It's because I'm strong enough. Though I can tell your body contains a force stronger than mine, but if we really fight each other, you are not my match. If I really have to use everything I got, I have at least a dozen means to kill you." Viviani smiled brilliantly. "Why would I fight you? It's been hard for me to find an interesting person, to begin with. So it's a given that I will get along with you well. Anyways, I heard you won 1 billion in the casino? It was just an accident, and perhaps it was due to my good luck. But you yourself seem to have lost a lot," said Tang Xiu with a smile. Spreading out her hands, Viviani replied, "Actually, for people like us, money is something that should be easy to get, no? One of my abilities grants me the ability to cheat in gambling. But I detest cheating since I will easily lose interest." Tang Xiu raised his thumbs up and praised with a sigh, "You're far better than me. As for me, the speed I spend money is way faster than the speed I use in making it. Hence, I'm a poor man." He. You, a Chinese like modesty, huh? You just said that both of us are very powerful, how about we have a casual fight? Ever since I turned 16, never once have I ever met anyone stronger than me. Even those who are very powerful in the eyes of ordinary people cannot withstand a slap from me. Tang Xiu himself indeed wanted to compare notes with Viviani. But when he heard that she hadn't encountered any experts ever since she turned 16, the thought disappeared. He shook his head and said, "You have a little combat experience. Fighting you won't have any significance at all. Forget it." Viviani's brows turned crisscrossed as she said resentfully, "Tang Xiu, do you think I can't hit you?" For a second, Tang Xiu blankly stared, before he burst into laughter. "Well, I gotta admit that you can indeed beat me. Is this all right with you, though? Let's just go back and eat something inside." Viviani didn't say anything. She instantly moved and appeared at Tang Xiu's side as her pair of white slender hands slapped toward Tang Xiu. Her speed was fast, even faster than Tang Xiu's best speed. Just as her palm was about to slap Tang Xiu's shoulder, Tang Xiu quickly dodged and evaded it. "Hiya!" Shouting delicately, Viviani's body suddenly shot up high for about 7 to 8 meters midair. Her body rotated while flapping her arms down. Tang Xiu knitted his brows. He found that Viviani was simply clueless about how to fight. Though she was extremely fast, she revealed many flaws he could exploit at any time. "Move back." Tang Xiu's toe forcefully tossed the ground and evaded Viviani's whipping palms in an instant. His body appeared at her side as his hands moved lightning fast, grabbing her supple and slender waist in an instant. As his wrist raised and moved, he instantly caught her in his arms. Ah! Losing her balance, Viviani could feel warmness coming from Tang Xiu's hands as well as felt his thick, strong chest as Tang Xiu pulled her into his embrace. "Do you get it now? Your speed and strength are better than mine. But you know nothing about combat skills. I can easily defeat you if I wish to. Hence, comparing notes between us is useless. If you want to see what a combat scene looks like, you can see it later since there will be a fight tonight," said Tang Xiu whilst smiling. Viviani's hands were hooked on the back of Tang Xiu's neck. Her fair white face blushed as the brilliant splendor of her eyes turned more intense. Just as Tang Xiu finished talking, her arms, which were hooked on the back of Tang Xiu's neck, suddenly exerted a pulling force, causing her sensual red lips to be pasted directly on Tang Xiu's mouth. Ugh! Tang Xiu's eyes turned saucer and dazed for a short while. He had calculated everything, but he hadn't predicted that Viviani would unexpectedly take the initiative to kiss him. Her speed didn't allow him to avoid it. "Stop it!" He directly put her down and broke out from her arms while being at a loss whether he had to feel amused or embarrassed. Viviani pursed up her lips and then stretched out her pink-colored tongue to lick them as if tasting the aftertaste of the kiss just now. She then giggled and said, "Our kiss was just so. It's like those ordinary lovers' acts on TV. Had it been real lovers, the kiss would have been a French kiss, no? Anyways, I feel good toward very few men since I was small until I grew up, so I never knew what a French kiss felt like. How about you let me try it?" What a ridiculous request. Never once had Tang Xiu ever heard such an absurd, ridiculous request. Viviani was still a woman regardless. From her behavior, it was evident that she was definitely a woman who had few experiences in human affairs. "Vivian, you may have not experienced it, but it doesn't mean you have never seen people do it, no? Those shown on TV series are all closely related to reality. Thus, you should realize that only people who are mutually in love can kiss each other. Otherwise, it means that you're behaving indecently. Do you want to be an immoral woman and become an object of mockery by others?" In order to stop her ridiculousness, Tang Xiu spoke quickly. Viviani was stunned and in a daze. Immediately after, she laughed back and forth, even finally clutching her stomach. She pointed at Tang Xiu as she said with a smile, "Pfft. I never thought I really have never thought that you, Mr. Tang, would actually be this interesting. Do you really think I'm just a child who knows nothing? Pfft. To be frank, I was just teasing you. Feeling secretly relieved, Tang Shou laughed. I'm relieved since you were just teasing me. Anyways, let's go eat something and drink a good wine inside. Viviani ran to the side to grab her high heels and carried it by hand. She then followed Tang Shou walking back to the villa. However, her mouth didn't stay idle. May I ask something, Mr. Tang? What do you want to ask? Do you have a girlfriend? Or, are you married? Tang Shou was silent for a moment before he replied, it seems like it's a no and yes. Alas, feelings and sentiments are complicated. It's kinda unclear to speak it out in a short sentence, though. Surprised and astonished, Viviani replied, so to say, you can be counted as having been taken and yet you're also a free man, right? Then let's employ a more practical action here. You got problems with your girlfriend, no? You're lucky I chose to eat some losses to try to be your girlfriend. After all, you are one of the extremely few men I don't dislike. Tang Shou waved his hand, no need, thanks. Maybe I'll have one immediately anyway. Viviani snapped humorlessly, don't tell me that I'm not as good a woman as her. Why do I feel you seem to be excluding me? It's not like I'm repelling you. It's merely because I don't plan to be burdened with affections. Got it, said Tang Shou. No, I don't get it, replied Viviani. After pondering for a moment, Tang Shou said, let me say it this way. The affections between a man and a woman are precisely a burden, and I hate to have this kind of burden. This is the reason why I'm unlikely to find a girlfriend. In the case that I feel like having descendants to carry on my ancestral line, then I'll just casually try to find a woman to marry. I only need her to bear my child. There's no need to think and talk about affections whatsoever. Marveling with a sigh, Viviani exclaimed, it's a very peculiar way of thinking you have there. You're really strange. I just said those words to tease you because it's also impossible for me to fall for you in our first meeting. It's just that, I felt the necessity to entangle you, hence, I spoke about sentiments. Only, I now find you to be more and more interesting. Forcing out a wry smile, Tang Shou said, hey, I'm not a toy. To think that you regard me as interesting, I don't know whether I have to cry or laugh. Well, put on your shoes quickly. Let's go eat something. Complying, Viviani then suddenly said, by the way, do you want to know why one of the bosses here, Tom Reggie, knows and respects me so much? Chapter 297, The Mingled Grief and Hatred. Hearing Viviani's sudden revelation, a confused look appeared on Tang Shou's handsome face as he asked in surprise, why? Well, I'm rich. Viviani proudly smiled. Struck dazed, Tang Shou rolled his eyes immediately. He was indeed puzzled by the attitude shown by Tom Reggie toward Viviani. Now, he understood. Viviani, inside Tom Reggie's mind, was but someone with more money than sense. It's not only because I'm rich, though. I also saved him. I coincidentally helped him solve some troubles when he offended some people in Latin America a few years ago. Hence, he has been very respectful to ever since. Tang Shou understood in a flash and forced a smile, can't you finish talking at one go? I also think that Tom seems to treat you like a hillbilly moneybag and wants to get more profits from you. Humph. Viviani snorted. The Chinese call it spendthrift and foolish, no? But don't take it for granted, though. Unless I want to throw my money, nobody will get even a dime from me. Where did you get so much money from? Care to teach me your money-making secret? Asked Tang Shou curiously. Without any concern at all, Viviani said, I got no problem teaching you. You just need to fiercely beat those who provoke you and force them to pay, that's all. Those dark forces who kick people around and have ill-gotten wealth are holding money that shouldn't belong to them. So I pack them up fiercely and make them pay a big price. A weird expression appeared Tang Xiu's face as his mouth twitched a few times. It was truly a miracle for Viviani to survive until now, since she had poor combat experience despite her powerful strength. However, Tang Xiu admitted that this method was indeed a good way to make money fast. For instance, those 4 big shots in Hong Kong who provoked him. Wasn't the profit he'd gotten from them only a little more than 10 billion? As he thought up to there, Tang Xiu shook his head, for he couldn't approve such a method of committing an offense and offending people. Nowadays, thieves who stole were not that fearsome, but instead were those thieves with scheming minds that you needed to look out for. Though he was powerful, but were he to offend too many dark forces, he would have to face numerous enemies dealing with him. He may slay 1 or 2 bunches, but could he be able to do the same against 100, 200 parties? Furthermore, there were still friends and relatives he must take into account, since troubles would descend upon those he cared if those people were to retaliate. Vivi, you had better not do this kind of thing again in the future. You can invest in businesses, spending money to make money, since you're rich now. If you keep offending those dark forces and they get thoroughly angered, they might desperately take revenge on you. I'm afraid you will have to face unexpected mishaps. If by chance they retaliate on your family, you might be able to protect yourself, but will you be able to protect your loved ones? Viviani was stunned and dazed as her pace abruptly stopped. Her mouth opened, yet not the slightest sound came out. Seeing such abnormal reaction from her, Tang Xiu was confused. Hey, what happened to you? Viviani didn't respond. Her eyes blanked out as though she was devoid of her soul, standing there like a statue. The reflecting moonlight on her golden hair made her look dazzling. Murderous aura? Tang Xiu had a change in his expression. The murderous aura he could feel from Viviani was not only strong, but a real one. As Viviani eventually overcame her daze, a chilling light filled her eyes as she forced herself to look to Tang Xiu and speak with a cold ice tone. I finally figured out as to why my father had a sudden, unexpected car accident that claimed his life 7 years ago. Why the electric wire was broken and my mother was electrocuted to the death in her bathtub at home 5 years ago. I finally know why the house suddenly collapsed and killed my only younger brother inside 3 years ago. I finally realized why uncle got conned and was ripped off from his wealth, finally forcing him to commit suicide. Tang Xiu was stunned before he said with disbelief on his face, are you suspecting all those weren't a coincidence, but were there retaliation from someone? Whilst tightly gripping her fist, the murderous intent glowing in Viviani's eyes intensified. Fury filled her eyes as she spoke. I'm sure it was their revenge, because not even one of my family members remains. All of them had died. Even our kind neighbor, Grandma Bessie, died by a stone thrown from the footbridge when she went out to the grocery. It truly is not far out from that. Sighed Tang Xiu inside. Quickly putting on her shoes, Viviani then turned around and ran away. Hey, where are you going? Asked Tang Xiu loudly. I will kill them. They will pay the most painful price no matter who they are, replied Viviani loudly. Knitting his brows, Tang Xiu wanted to remind her not to act out of emotions. Even if she wanted to find the murderer who killed her relatives, still, she had to investigate it slowly. The incidents happened many years ago, after all. But he eventually gave up when he recalled the extent of his relationship with her. He just only met her today. Only because they chatted a bit and a joke that ended up with a kiss, still, all those couldn't be considered of them having a close relationship whatsoever. I have to follow her. I too hope she can find the murderer who killed her family members and survive. Secretly sighing inside, Tang Xiu then turned around and walked into the villa. Inside, Tom Reggie was holding a crystal cup and chatting with old Fatty Lee. Behind them was Mo An, who had just woken up from his meditation, and it was evident that his cultivation was improved. At this time, he was carrying cakes and quickly eating them. Mr. Tang, where's Ms. Vivi? She has an urgent matter, so she left, replied Tang Xiu, smiling lightly. Puzzled, Tom Reggie asked, Ms. Vivi has left? Did she return back to her villa? Or She should be returning back to her villa, but she may leave the resort soon, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Curious, Tom Reggie asked, you seem to know the reason why Ms. Vivi left, Mr. Tang. Could you tell me about it? Tang Xiu thought about it for a moment and felt it was fine to tell Tom Reggie. After all, Vivian was Tom Reggie's benefactor. Recalling her personality, the sudden realization that her family members died due to murder and not accident would certainly drive her into anger and affect her judgment. If Tom Reggie met and assisted Viviani on his behalf and then helped her, it would be good. She's going to have her revenge. She just found that her relatives were murdered. Stunned, Tom Reggie nodded, I know Ms. Vivi is very strong as I witnessed how she hit several ruthless individuals half dead once. She should be able to get revenge for her family members easily. You're too optimistic. Though I don't know her much, her hatred seems to be shrouding her reason, which may render her vulnerable this time, said Tang Xiu. Tom's expression changed. He was fully aware how vulnerable people could be without having a clear mind. In this age, force and wisdom were equally important. If someone secretly attacked her while she was unprepared, she would easily be killed. After thinking up to there, Tom Reggie quickly said, Mr. Tang, I intended to accompany you in tonight's banquet, but I'm rather worried about Viviani. So I would like to see her if you don't mind it. All right. Go. Tang Xiu nodded. Tom Reggie quickly left after replying. Looking at Moan who was wolfing down and gobbling up something, Tang Xiu was rather surprised as he approached him and asked, Why are you behaving like you're the embodiment of a hungry devil? I saw you eating since I came back, and yet you haven't eaten to the full till now? Gulping down everything, Moan laughed, Boss, I don't know what happened. After I finished cultivating, I found that cultivation seemed to have improved greatly and felt very hungry. So hungry I could devour a fat cow. Tang Xiu couldn't bear laughing, so, you're much stronger than before now? I should be 50% stronger. Maybe twice stronger if you give me 2 days more, said Moan confidently. Good. Tang Xiu nodded in satisfaction. Lao Bay Resort. Inside one of the visitor villas, Viviani was smashing everything inside while rummaging her belongings. Though she was clueless who the murderers behind the scenes were, but she firmly believed she could find them, killing them and having her revenge. I will kill them, whoever they are, shouted Viviani in anger as she stuffed her things into the opened suitcase. Knock, knock. The door was knocked as Tom Reggie's voice came through it, Ms. Vivi, it's Tom here. I need to talk about something with you. Walking to the door and opening it, she then asked with a frosty expression, What are you here for? Anything you want to tell me? Wearing respectful expression, Tom Reggie replied, I just met Mr. Tang and he told me about your matter. Ms. Vivi, you're my benefactor, so I must repay your kindness. However, I think you ought to listen to me pertaining your endeavor to seek your mortal enemies and have your revenge. Say it. Viviani said with heaviness in her voice. There's an old proverb in China that 10 years are not too long a time for a gentleman to exact his revenge. At present, you don't know who your mortal enemies are and on whom you should exact your revenge. Hence, I think what you need to do now is to use everything you have in store to find those murderers, investigate their backgrounds and then devise a plan, said Tom Reggie. No. I can wait no longer, shouted Viviani angrily. Sighing inside, Tom Reggie then said solemnly, Ms. Vivi, Mr. Tang just told me that anger and hatred may have shrouded your state of mind. I somewhat didn't believe it at first, because in my eyes you are a noble, elegant, graceful and resplendent goddess who is full of wisdom. But now I have to believe Mr. Tang's judgment. You have really been blinded by anger and hatred, thus will lose your rationality over things. Chapter 298, Going to the Appointment. Viviani dazed as the furious expression on her face disappeared. She admitted that anger and hatred were indeed clouding her judgment since she was impatient to get revenge for her relatives. Realizing that his words were rather effective, Tom Reggie spoke again quickly. Ms. Vivi, please think about it. Revenge is a must, but it's imperative to calm yourself down before you do so. The people who dared to kill your relatives presumably are those with unusual backgrounds. And those who have great influence are all ruthless and will resort to all means. If your judgment is clouded, not only will the progress of your investigation be affected, unexpected mishaps would also occur, resulting in the failure of your revenge. Even you yourself will also be in danger. Viviani calmed down. Though anger and hatred were still fully packed inside her, what Tom Reggie had said was reasonable. Calming down, she would be able to remember those whom she had offended in the past that presumably killed her relatives. Go. I need to be alone. Viviani waved and sat down on the sofa. Secretly relieved inside, Tom Reggie then said, Ms. Vivi, you are my benefactor. If you want to, I'll send some people to help investigate and gather news on your enemies. I'll also bring some manpower to help you in your revenge when the time comes. Your enemy is my enemy. Looking up, Viviani looked at the serious-looking Tom Reggie as she finally nodded and said, Thanks, Tom. Shaking his head, Tom Reggie replied, Ms. Vivi, you're forever the most dazzling and honorable person inside my heart. So you don't need to be this polite to me. Well, please rest first. I must go to Mr. Tang now. If he had not told me about this, I'm afraid I would be in the dark about this matter. Go. Viviani waved. After Tom Reggie left, Viviani nested herself on the sofa as tears broke out, flowing and rolling down her skin, wetting her lapels. She kept recalling all the forces and people she had offended all these years before her family members died one after another. Gradually, with her outstanding memory, she finally had dozens of suspects in her mind and secretly made a decision that, regardless of who killed her family members, she must completely decimate them. Mr. Tang? After wiping the tears from her face, Viviani stood from the sofa and walked to door. She had to see Tang Shou. She found that the man was a genuine matured person and someone who could see through the nature of things. If it wasn't for him telling Tom Reggie about this, she would have been blinded by her anger and hatred now, becoming a headless fly wandering around. At the seaside villa. Tang Shou was conversing with the oldly couple when he saw Tom Reggie coming back. From him he knew that Viviani had calmed down and the tinge of worry he had toward her immediately disappeared. However, he hadn't thought she would actually come back to the party without being asked. It seems you now understand that being impulsive is a devil in itself. Tang Shou smiled and said slowly. Thanks, Mr. Tang. I will offer you fine gift after my revenge as a token of gratitude, said Viviani with a nod. Tang Shou waved his hand, no need. Viviani no longer spoke as she walked straight to the stairs. She wasn't in the mood to stay in the party anymore, but she recalled Tang Shou saying that there would be a fight between powerful experts in the evening. She now also realized how inexperienced she was in combat. Hence, she must learn to become stronger. Only when she became stronger could she get revenge for her relatives as well as better being able to protect the people she cared about in the future. As the evening banquet ended, Tom Reggie bade farewell and left, while Fatty Lee escorted his wife and daughter back and then rushed back, as he also knew that Wang Rui had a scheduled fight with Tang Shou's subordinate. At the second floor's balcony, Tang Shou, Viviani, and Fatty Lee were sitting before a small round table, sipping tea while calmly waiting. As for Mo An and Mo Ao, they were now sitting cross-legged in the back of the house, quietly cultivating. How come that Ching Ching Mountain kiddo isn't here yet? An hour passed in waiting and Fatty Lee was a bit impatient. The appointment between us is at 12 a.m. It's 11:30 now, so there are 30 minutes left. Just be patient, said Tang Shou with a smile. I just want to see the fight earlier. I can't wait for your show, hummed Fatty Lee. Huh, my show? Tang Shou was surprised. What show? Don't tell me you forgot? You gotta, Fatty Lee cried out. He abruptly came to a halt. When he found that Viviani was in a daze and wasn't paying attention them, he shot Tang Xiu a teasing look and then pursed his lips whilst facing Viviani, hinting that it was inappropriate to mention the program show before another woman. Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows before a thought crossed his mind. He then laughed and said, "Ah, you're talking about the upcoming program I picked, aren't you?" What was it? Ah. Seven Goddesses Dance, right? Right, it's this one. Fatty Lee, you've kept me guessing as to what exactly the Seven Goddesses Dance is until now. Brother Tang, this program is meant to be interpreted in our minds, it cannot be talked about. Only after you enjoy it will you understand what it is. It's a pit I'm rather old, my limbs are no longer fast to insist such a long time, or else, I really wanted to join in the fun. Could this program require a lot of exercises? Asked Tang Xiu, surprised. Fatty Lee affirmed, very much. Most people are simply unable to endure it. Ah. It turns out to be so. But I'm not your average man, though. So there should be no problem, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Right at this time, Mo An, who sat cross-legged on the floor, suddenly jumped up. When he looked downstairs, he saw that a man with 2 bodyguards had arrived and immediately called out, "Boss, the guests are here." Looking at the stairs direction, Tang Xiu saw Wang Rui with a cigarette clamped by his lips. His expression was frivolous as he came toward him. Wow, Brother Tang is truly great. You even charmed this beautiful woman who was gambling with me? Wang Rui said with a smile that yet unlike one. Don't talk such nonsense. Viviani is just a friend of mine. But you still didn't abstice even though you clearly know that you'd fight my man. You've just wasted your strength on a woman's belly, didn't you? How did you know? Asked Wang Rui in astonishment. Your vitality seems a bit faint, far worse than when we met back then. If you didn't get sucked by a fabled vampire, then you should have wasted your physical strength on women, said Tang Xiu lightly. Whilst raising his thumb up, Wang Rui exclaimed in praise, Brother Tang is amazing. You can see through my body. I suddenly feel that rather than playing with your subordinate, it'll be more interesting to play with you. How about fighting me? Tang Xiu said with a smile, I will naturally accompany you playing if you can beat my man. But before that, you had better rest for 2 hours in order to not feel that my subordinate's victory was due to that and not because of his combat strength. Wang Rui waved his hand, it's fine. I don't need to rest. Then please have a sit and drink a cup of tea. There's still half an hour to the agreed time. We'll have the bout outside on the beach. How about it, said Tang Xiu after a moment of silence. Let's decide so, said Wang Rui with a smile. After taking a seat, Wang Rui squinted his eyes at Tang Xiu, asking with a smile, Brother Tang, I only know your name, but I don't from where you come from. I have seen some information about those big respected families' science, such as their photos and names, but I haven't heard about you at all. Lightly smiling, Tang Xiu said, I'm just a nobody, not worth mentioning. Wang Rui shook his head, no, it's not a simple feat to be able to invite such powerful bodyguards. Say something and I'll give it a try. I might be able to know something about you depending on the pointer. Tang Xiu was silent for a moment and suddenly grinned, I'm actually a student who's about to enter university. In addition, I'm also half a doctor who worked at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a few days before. A student and unofficial doctor? From the beginning, Wang Rui didn't buy Tang Xiu's words at all. Because he immediately sent some people to investigate Tang Xiu when they parted ways in the casino. But he didn't get the news from the mainland but rather from Saipan, from which he heard that Tang Xiu had just won 1 billion in the casino. It was a much faster and bigger win compared to his victory in the gambling table. However, what surprised him was that Tang Xiu was still safe and sound now even though he won that 1 billion. Brother Tang, you're not being honest. Perhaps Fatty Lee has told you about me? I asked your identity but you still concealed it. It's kinda boring. Wang Rui put one leg over the other and casually lit up a cigarette. Furrowing his brows, Tang Shou said in reply, I didn't lie. I really am about to enter university as well as am an unofficial doctor. You can investigate it if you don't believe me. However, I'm someone who hates being investigated by others. I will make them pay a price if I found out about it. Wang Rui was silent for a moment and suddenly laughed, since Brother Tang doesn't want to say it. I'm also someone who doesn't want to force anyone against their will. Well, I won more money than you this time, hence I'm inviting you to a sumptuous banquet after we return home. Tang Xiu didn't take such pleasantries seriously and simply replied with a few words. He then looked at Mo An and said calmly, give your best strength and do not lower your guard, or you'll fail miserably. Mo An glanced at Wang Rui and continued to carefully comprehend the changes of a martial artist's state of mind. Tang Xiu's directions had enlightened him, resulting in his great improvement. Hence, he came to a realization that, once he could comprehend some of a cultivator's state of mind, it would be a turning point for him to advance. He now understood the significance of the state of mind to cultivators. If he could, he wished to have dozens of enlightenments every day. Time flew by. Tang Xiu then suddenly stood and slowly said, it's about time. On, you and Mr. Wang go to the beach. Don't disappoint Mr. Wang and the others. I guarantee you it won't happen. Chapter 299, Shape Without a Soul. As the bright moonlight shone on the sea surface, bringing about gleaming reflections of the waves amid the powerful wind, two ghostly silhouettes silently appeared at the seaside beach. In regards to speed, you're better than me. In the speed contest just now, Wang Rui, who looked down on Mo An, lost badly. Even though he went all out and sped up to his limit, Mo An could still follow beside him, neither too fast nor too slow, and didn't fall behind in the slightest, even seemingly holding back. Give me your best shot. Don't let me down, Mo An replied with a light laugh. Don't let you down? Coldness glowed inside Wang Rui's eyes. He once said to Tang Xiu that he was someone who loved challenges. But to think that his bodyguard would actually challenge him? He was quite resentful, and the consequences for that would be dire. I will defeat you with everything I got, making you admit your defeat thoroughly. Then I'll weigh your boss as how much pounds he got in store. Mo An crackled his fingers as he smiled, you have no way to find out my boss's weight. Come, give me all you got. I'll use strength to convince you. Humph. Forming a palm, Wang Rui moved and appeared in front of Mo An, his hand slashing toward Mo An's neck as though a blade. The speed of his palm blade was fast. So fast it brought about a whooshing sound and the air surge. Using his tiptoe to tap the ground, Mo An instantly moved backward to avoid Wang Rui's palm chop. He jumped up and flipped his legs, sending Wang Rui a fierce kick. The continuous images of the trajectory of his kicks were unending, causing one to be unable to discern whether they were real or illusory. Bam, bam, bam. Failing, Wang Rui quickly whipped out his leg. In a flash, dozens of kicks had been exchanged between them. Legs were countered by legs and calves collided with calves, bringing about an immense vibrating wave force, causing their complexion to slightly change at the same time. Yet, Wang Rui felt like he was kicking an iron stake. The impact force brought about incomparable pain to his right leg, causing him to be in constant retreat. In stark contrast, Mo An only had a slight change in expression, but his formidable aura did not weaken in the slightest. He was like a maggot feeding on a corpse that clung onto him as his legs were as though long whips, thrashing again in sequence. On the villa balcony, Tang Xiu stood as though a spear with his hands folded, overlooking the two fighting men on the beach. Beside him were Viviani and old Fatty Li watching intently the fighting figures on the beach, looking somewhat shocked. For Viviani, who possessed formidable strength and speed, yet didn't know how to utilize them, Mo An and Wang Rui, who were much inferior to her in terms of speed and strength, yet were performing sophisticated combat skills despite the seemingly simple moves. It left her dazed and shocked inside. A strong desire to learn from them surged up inside her heart, wanting to enrich her combat experience. Shocks also struck old Fatty Lee. He was also someone who was skilled in martial arts. Though he was fat and his abilities couldn't be compared to his past years, he was still agile. Fighting against 3 to 5 thugs by himself, he would still come out as the victor. However, the fight between Mo An and Wang Rui was an eye-opener for him. It was much more striking than watching Chinese kung fu movies. In his eyes, the fight on the beach was a combat between 2 experts in the martial arts society. Those formidable styles and exquisite moves dazzled him. Hence, he came to the realization that were he to fight any one of them, he would perhaps be knocked out in a flash. Chinese kung fu is really broad and profound. Shock and excitement struck Fatty Old Lee as he sighed wholeheartedly. Glancing at him, Tang Shou laughed, "Fatty Lee, your strength is commendable. Though you have a fat body, an average person won't be able to fight you, no? What is it? You haven't seen a fight between experts at this level before?" "It's my first time seeing it." Fatty Lee shook his head and forced out a smile. "It's understandable, though. There are so many people practicing martial arts in the world, but true experts are very rare. Being able to see 2 experts at the same time as well as watching them fight is indeed a scene very difficult to happen. Anyways, who do you think will win?" Without hesitation, Fatty Lee replied, "Mo An." Raising his eyebrows and smiling, Tang Shou asked, "Why are you so sure?" Fatty Lee pointed at the 2 men and said, "Though Wang Rui's kung fu is powerful, it's evident that he's somewhat straining. But take a look at Mo An, his attacks are steady, neither too fast nor slow, yet each move makes Wang Rui constantly retreat. He occasionally blocks and evades, immediately counterattacking afterward." Tang Shou nodded, praising, "It seems your eyes are good, Fatty Lee. Though Wang Rui is also an expert and is experienced in combat, there's still a big gap between them. If there's no accident, Wang Rui will be defeated within 10 moves." Suddenly, Viviani asked, "Mr. Tang, if I had Wang Rui's combat experience and skills, do you think I could defeat your bodyguard?" Rolling his eyes, Tang Shou humorlessly replied, "Were you to have rich fighting experience, let alone Mo An, perhaps even I myself would not be your opponent." Fatty Lee himself was clueless about Viviani's strength. He thought that Tang Shou was flirting with her. With a teasing look, he said, "Brother Tang, you won't hit her since it's evident that you clearly have a soft heart toward her and don't want to hurt a belle, no? Only, do you really know kung fu?" Tang Shou laughed, "I know a little about kung fu. I can't say that I'm good at it, though. But I can say that it's enough for self-defense." Despite knowing Tang Shou for a short period of time, Fatty Lee could tell that Tang Shou was an extremely low-key young man. He felt that the Tang Shou's words were overly humble. His kung fu skill might be under his bodyguard's, but perhaps was still a lot stronger than him. On the beach, Wang Rui moved fast as the lightning. Most of his techniques were killing moves. Unfortunately, even if he raised his strength a level higher, he still couldn't do a thing to Mo An. He even faintly felt that he was in constant retreat while Mo An himself was seemingly holding back. Yes, he had done his best, but Mo An had not. This feeling somewhat shocked to him, but it vexed him more. During the exchange of fists and kicks, Wang Rui finally ceased his footsteps forcibly. He staked everything on heavy strikes, frantically sending a bombardment of dozens of fists. Blurred shadow paths, along with sonic booms, caused one's heart to shiver. "Originally, I thought you were much stronger since boss wanted me to compare notes with you. It turns out that even using 70% of my strength is useless since you actually had been forced to such a desperate strait. If so, I might as well end it earlier." As Wang Rui sent out dozens of fists toward Mo An and staggered backward, Mo An suddenly appeared behind him as his fists moved in a strange trajectory, seemingly about to bombard Wang Rui's back. But due to Wang Rui's sudden and hasty avoidance, it ended up hitting his shoulder instead. Along with the sound of dislocated bones, Wang Rui's body was as though a fallen leaf as it advanced and smashed toward the beach 7 to 8 meters away. Bam! With a muffled sound, Wang Rui smashed on the beach with a pale face before jumping up as though a carp. A shocked look flickered in his eyes as he stood there 7 or 8 meters away looking at Mo An, a strong bitterness surging in his heart. He lost. He knew he had been defeated, thoroughly. Mo An was too strong, the toughest one he had ever seen in his life. He had fought numerous martial arts grandmasters across the country and won against all with absolute strength. He also had met many experts from foreign countries, whether the one who once won the King of Fighter title, Muay Thai experts, Taekwondo or Judo masters, nobody could beat him. Eventually, he lost to someone's bodyguard. I don't get it. With your strength, it would be easy for you to dominate the film industry, yet why would you choose to work as someone else's bodyguard, said Wang Rui slowly. Do you think being a bodyguard isn't a good job, asked Mo An with a smile. If you really want to be a bodyguard, how much does Tang Xiu pay you? I can offer you 10 times his offer, Wang Rui frowned and said deeply. Mo An shook his head, you can't give me what I want. Besides, I'm not boss's bodyguard, but his subordinate. Whoever dares to harm my boss, even if I have to trade my life with his, I won't bat an eye. Besides, you can't even beat me, so you definitely aren't his opponent. What? Wang Rui's expression changed and he breathed faster. He stared at Mo An tightly and quickly asked, you mean Tang Xiu is even more powerful than you? Is boss more powerful than me? Even if there are 10 of you, I'm afraid you are still not boss's opponent, said Mo An lightly. Having said that, he turned around and walked toward the villa. Wang Rui's expression constantly changed. He recalled what he said to Tang Xiu in the casino as well as when he arrived at the villa, acting arrogantly in front of him. Shame and embarrassment quickly climbed up to his face. He felt like he was trying to teach a fish how to swim, displaying his poor skills before an expert, unaware of how much he was disgracing himself. For these many years, how long has it been for me to lose this much face? Whilst shaking his head, Wang Rui smiled bitterly before he followed behind Mo An toward the villa. His right arm was dislocated and he had no way to fight anymore. Hence, he needed to quickly find someone to fix it. On the villa balcony. Looking at the two, Tang Xiu, Viviani, and Fatty Li already knew the result of the fight, yet they didn't show Wang Rui any ridiculing look. If he wanted to blame someone, blame Mo An for being too strong. Yet, Tang Xiu was the one who was the most depressed among them, because he thought that Wang Rui and Mo An were fairly equal in terms of strength. Hence, he let them fight so that Mo An would reap benefits from it. However, Mo An progressed by leaps and bounds due to his sudden epiphany, causing Wang Rui to simply not be his opponent anymore. Thus, apart from striking Wang Rui's acute and sharp disposition, there was no other effect whatsoever. Boss. Mo An was respectful as always. You did well. It's a pity my purpose hasn't been achieved though. However, since your strength has improved, it is still a good thing, said Tang Xiu with a laugh. Chapter 300, Plea. Looking at the downcast and embarrassed Wang Rui, Tang Xiu said with a smile, don't be discouraged. There's no end in the path of martial arts. Sometimes having a setback is a good thing, and martial artists must guard against arrogance and impetuosity. One must know that there's always someone better and there's a heaven beyond the heaven. I'm waiting for you to challenge my subordinate again when you become stronger. Wang Rui took a deep breath and sternly said, I will challenge your man again, but my ultimate goal is you. I hope I can challenge and defeat you one day. I'll be waiting, said Tang Xiu with a smile. At the sighted, with an unusual light in her eyes, Viviani suddenly came in front of Mo An and said, teach me your kung fu. I want to acknowledge you as my master. Acknowledging a master? Mo An was stunned and immediately looked at Tang Xiu. Hey, don't look at me. Keep me out of it, Tang Xiu waved and said. Thinking for a moment, Mo An looked at Viviani and said slowly, I'm sorry. I have no intention to accept disciples. Viviani quickly said, as long as you can make me become as powerful as you, I'll pay any price. How about I pay you with money? I'm rich and have lots of money. Mo An shook his head, I'm not short on money. Even if you give me a mountain of gold, I will still not accept you as a disciple since I don't have much time. Viviani turned to look at Tang Xiu with pleading eyes. Tang Xiu was silent before he shook his head and said, since he doesn't want to accept you as a disciple, I also don't have any means. He may be my subordinate, but I will never force him to do what he doesn't want to do. Also, he isn't suited to be your teacher. What he excels at is killing skills. For example, the fight between him and Wang Rui just now. Were it a frontal combat, Wang Rui would be killed by him in the exchanges at the most. Shocked, Wang Rui was stupefied. With anger in his eyes, he said, wasn't it kinda overboard, Tang Xiu? Even if I'm weaker than Mo An, can he kill me within 10 moves? Mo An interrupted, 10 moves are too many. I can kill you within 5 moves. Wang Rui's lips twitched a few times, but no sounds came out of it. However, the look of disbelief on his face fully expressed his feelings. Right at this time, Tang Xiu moved and grabbed Wang Rui's arm lightning fast. Before the latter reacted, he shook Wang Rui's wrist while his other hand held Wang Rui's shoulder. With a crack sound, Wang Rui's expression greatly changed, his dislocated arms had been fixed. Retracting back his hands, Tang Xiu then said calmly, you don't need to doubt it. When An fought you, he had many good chances to kill you directly. But since he knew that you're not an enemy, hence he didn't do it out of mercy. Also, he didn't use his full strength when he fought you. Wang Rui waved his arm. As he felt only faint pain from his dislocated arm and no other symptoms, the anger in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by a bitter smile. He then nodded and said, I know that he didn't go all out. Tang Xiu turned around and looked toward the unhappy-looking Viviani and immediately said with a smile, actually, I have a way to make you stronger, but it's kinda dangerous. Viviani's spirit was roused. She was full of hatred, wanting to find the people who killed her relatives and avenge them. Hence, she asked quickly, what is it? We'll talk about this matter later, said Tang Xiu. Having said that, he looked at Fatty Li and Wang Rui and said with a faint smile, the two of you, today's matter has been concluded. Shouldn't you go back to rest? Cupping his fists, Wang Rui then turned around and left with his 2 men. As for Fatty Li, he didn't move and cheerfully looked at Tang Xiu as he smiled and asked, Brother Tang, you have yet to enjoy the 7 goddesses dance, no? Since there's a beauty accompanying you tonight, you shouldn't go. But won't you still let it pass tomorrow? If you can complete the whole course of the 7 goddesses dance, I'll treat you to a feast. I need to look at the situation first. I plan to leave tomorrow, but if the storm at the sea isn't over yet by then, I'll stay for another day, and then experience this 7 goddesses dance, said Tang Xiu with a smile. You wanna leave? Where to? Are you going back home? Asked Fatty Li, surprised. No, I'm going on an expedition, Tang Xiu shook his head. With a strange expression, Fatty Li looked at Tang Xiu. He shook his head and said with a smile, youngsters nowadays have good ideas. But if you go adventuring, don't tell that Qingcheng Mountain kiddo. Or else he will surely follow you like a plaster, you won't be able to shake him off. Got it. Tang Xiu nodded. He didn't have the intention to tell others about the private island he had purchased except to those close to him. After all, he was going to build a site that really belonged to him there as a base to train his army. Hence, it absolutely couldn't be exposed. Along with Fatty Li's departure, Tang Xiu hinted Mo An and Mo Au to go back and rest. He then took Viviani to the living room. If you want to become stronger, you can train in some training camps and have your revenge afterward. I heard Moan speak about them. There are many training camps in the world specialized in training experts. If you want to go there, you can quickly rise above others. A training camp? Viviani remembered that Tom Reggie had such experience once and silently nodded. Prior to this, she was always merciful and soft-hearted. Even to those who did evil, she wouldn't kill them and only gave them some fierce lessons, and then extorted a large sum of money from them to solve it. Only now did she realize that her soft-heartedness killed a lot of her family members. Thanks, Tang Xiu, Viviani spoke and then turned to leave. Looking at her back, Tang Xiu secretly sighed in his heart. He couldn't tell whether what he did would be good or bad for her. But he thought that her special force would be wasted if she didn't get stronger. The Seven Goddesses Dance? Recalling the program he picked before, Tang Xiu shook his head secretly. Fatty Li was deliberately making it look mysterious, causing a strong curiosity to sprout inside his heart. In any case, he also couldn't sleep now, so he decided to experience this program, finding out what its magicalness was exactly. Please arrange the Seven Goddesses Dance for me. After using the landline phone in the building to call Jasmine, Tang Xiu straightforwardly spoke. All right. Someone will take you there shortly. A few minutes later, a seductively dressed girl in a nightgown arrived at Tang Xi's residence and said in fluent English, "Are you, Mr. Tang? Vice President Jasmine ordered me to guide you to the pleasure center." "Yes, it's me." Tang Xiu nodded. Whilst following behind the girl, Tang Xiu asked curiously, "Beautiful miss, can you tell me in advance what sort of program the Seven Goddesses Dance is? It's just that my friend always looked mysterious and secretive speaking about it." Pfft. The lass couldn't help but burst into laughter before she asked with a smile, "You don't know what sort of program the Seven Goddesses Dance is, sir?" "I really don't know." Tang Xiu shook his head. The lass said with a smile, "Since you don't know, you might as well come with me. Wait until you have clearly experienced it. You will definitely enjoy it greatly as long as you stay alive and well." Alive and well? What does it mean? A puzzled expression hung on Tang Xiu's face. Looking at the lass who no longer wanted to explain, he could only stuff it inside his heart as he proceeded forward alongside her. 7 or 8 minutes later, they came to a European-style building. Taking a broad look around, Tang Xiu found that this building was rather peculiar. Firstly, not to mention its outward wall being painted red, each window had its curtain pulled open, which revealed its interior painted with the scarlet, orange, vermilion, green, dark green, indigo and purple colors. "Welcome, honored sir." Four beautiful girls in seductively long skirts stood in front of the building, greeting Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu nodded and followed the girl into the building. He then realized that the interior design and decoration was full of a dubious atmosphere as there was a shiny steel tube, erected in the middle of the hall surrounded by walls with flashing gold lightings illuminating it. The compelling design itself not only had a slightly bizarre model of a beautiful woman, there were even many which were supposed to be handsome or cool and strong men. "Mr. Tang, we have 7-storied pleasure centers all together here. Might I ask what floor you wish to go?" The girl brought Tang Xiu to the elevator door and inquired with a smile. "What's the difference?" asked Tang Xiu. "The higher the floor, the more beautiful the girl there is and the more expensive the price. However, Vice President has explained that you are completely exempted from expenses, hence you can choose any floor you wish," said the girl. "To the 7th floor, then," said Tang Xiu without thinking. "All right." As the elevator door opened, the girl took Tang Xiu along. When they arrived at the 7th floor, Tang Xiu then saw a woman in exposed dressing. She had an extremely hot and provocative figure as she stood outside, a dazzling smile on her face. The girl who guided him introduced, "Mr. Tang, she's Rival, the one in charge of the 7th floor." Since I've escorted you here, I've accomplished my task. I wish you a pleasant stay here. Having said that, she slightly bowed toward Tang Xiu, returned to the elevator and directly left. Please lead the way. Faintly, Tang Xiu could guess something, but wasn't sure of it yet. Hence, he said directly to Rival. Please. Rival guided Tang Xiu walking under the purple lights. They passed across 2 corridors and then arrived at a well-decorated, yet still ambiguous-styled room. She then smiled and said, Mr. Tang, please rest for a bit. There are fruits and desserts on the table as well as a variety of drinks inside the refrigerator. If you want to take a shower first, you can go to the bathroom in the side room. Please pardon us, we've to prepare for about 20 minutes. The program will formally start afterward. Is this program rather troublesome? Asked Tang Xiu. No, it's not. As long as your ability is good, it definitely is the best enjoyment in the world. If you have no other instructions, please pardon my leave first, said Rival with a smile. Tang Xiu waved as his vision then observed this 200 to 300 square meters room. It was luxurious and extravagant. In front of a long leather sofa was a long table filled with all kinds of desserts and fruits. Even many exquisite side dishes were on it. There was even a locker next to the sofa with a stack of fashion magazines. On the wall was hung a 60 inches LCD TV. The TV was muted, but it was displaying photos of beautiful women. I'll take a shower.